The guy we got to talk about with BYU is Jaren Hall. And yes, Puka was amazing. He is I think he's one of the most underrated, underappreciated wide receivers in all of college football. But the performance that Jaren Hall put in against Boise State is the stuff of legends. And watching that game and just digesting the importance of every single one of those throws and the decision-making that he made. And I don't know that it's fact, and I don't know that we'll ever know the truth, but I swear I saw him change 2 or 3 of those calls. And I you know what? I don't understand how we are here 2 weeks from Thanksgiving, and we just saw Puka Nacua get a full allotment of play calls for him. And I'm telling you, 2 or 3 of those play calls were changed by Jaren Hall to get Puka Nacua the football. And it paid off. And the reason that I want to talk about Jaren on a Monday morning where we could easily talk about Puka Nacua for an hour on this show, the reason I think we need to talk about Jaren Hall is because he became a BYU legend on the blue turf in Boise on Saturday night. And he did that because he showed leadership, and he showed command, and he showed poise, and he showed the ability to run. He showed the ability to deliver the football in time and space. Did he miss 2, 3 throws in the second half? He did. But when the game was on the line, what did he do? He made a perfect throw that required, by the way, a perfect catch out of Puka Nacua because of a terrible, egregious, missed call of a rushing touchdown at the end of the first half. But don't let that stop your joy, because Puka Nacua made one of the most important catches of the modern era of BYU football. Because I think if they lose that game, there's a real chance we're wondering if Kalani Sitake is the coach of the BYU Cougars after this season.
Y'all feel me?
And if Jaren Hall doesn't deliver a perfect pass, if he's not poised and in control, if Jaren Hall doesn't give you one of the best performances in the regular season that we've seen from a BYU quarterback, they don't win that game. And I understand that Puka did what he did. Jaren Hall's the guy we should be talking about this morning. And we can stop with this nonsense about Bryson Barnes. We can stop with this nonsense about Cam Rising. The best quarterback in the state of Utah is Jaren Hall. Because when you're losing, it's easy to be negative. When you're losing, it's easy to be negative. Jaren Hall's not negative. Jaren Hall was positive. He was a leader, and he performed, and I think that's why he's the guy you have to talk about this morning.
Yeah, and I think he's absolutely been the centerpiece of what they've been able to put together to get through this really rough stretch. I think this has easily been, and again, obviously I haven't been covering BYU for 20 years or anything, but just in the time that I've been paying attention to the team, like this has obviously been one of the most difficult stretches that Kalani's been through. And I think when you, like this period where you had a guy in Zach Wilson who really performed and did all these great things in the program, and like it was amazing, and the fan base was hyped, and now there's all these big expectations, and then the Big 12 thing gets announced. Now it's like it feels like you got to this next level, but with that next level came a ton of expectations. So when you were, going downhill here and losing game after game, and Tuiaki was embarrassing as a defensive coordinator, and Kalani had to take over that piece, all of that's happening. Who's right in the middle of that? Jaren Hall is right in the middle of that. Jaren Hall's always been the guy that says, hey, like, we just got to stay positive. We just got to focus on doing our job. We just got to make sure that we're consistent and staying in our lane. And again, he delivers. And I do agree that talent-wise, he's better than Cam Rising. I think that as a thrower, he's better than Cam Rising. And I think that if he did, because I agree, you can't say definitively, but it did look like he changed a couple of those plays. When you do that and it works out, and you put your best player in a position to make a play, like, you deserve a lot of credit for that. And we've talked so much about how Aaron Roderick hasn't been getting Puka the ball and how it's been such a struggle. So it was just great that with everything on the line that was for the program going to Boise, that catch was made and those plays were called, and you were able to leave there feeling good about yourself as you head into the back end of the schedule.
Well, and I think you listen to what Jaron said after the game, and I think this right here is exactly why when we talk about leadership and we talk about maturity and we talk about the importance of a quarterback, don't think that this message that he put out right here was very intentionally done.
For weeks, we didn't hear anything but negative talk. And so now there's going to be a lot of positive talk. We can't pay attention to that either. We got to keep the same mindset that got us here to this win tonight. Just focus on ourselves. The guys in this locker room, our families, that's all that matters. We love our fans. They're always here for us. We appreciate them. So just staying humble and understand that we got, a couple more games on the schedule to take care of.
It's easy to get too high and it's easy to get too low. Harris LaChance tells us that every week on this show as they try to shut that out. But it's easy when you win a game to read your own press clippings, and you can't do that. And I also think you listen to Puka Nacua. Listen to what Puka said after the game here, talking about being one of the best players.
I still got a lot to prove. There are a lot of blocking plays where I didn't, and there are a lot of routes where I could have done a lot better. But we won the game, and that's the end objective. And whatever our team needs me to do, I got to continue to be better. But it was fun to play out there football. Every time the ball comes my way, it's my job to make plays in the run game, pass game, blocking, running routes, trying to score touchdowns. So it was that was a great game of football all around for us.
Yeah, I think you're going to see that kid playing on Sundays. And it just is, when you hear Puka talk and then you hear a guy like Jaren Hall talk about Puka Nacua, this bite, again, I go back to leadership. I go back to the quarterback. I go back to the importance of what the quarterback says. Here's Jaren Hall on Puka Nacua.
100%. I've always known that. One of the best players in college football, hands down. He does it all. There's nothing he can't do.
What makes him so special, Puka?
He loves the game. He loves us. I mean, that dude is the most energetic guy in the field. Always most faith, most belief, and he puts time in the game. I mean, people don't see behind the scenes how much he loves his game, how much he thinks about it, how much time he spends studying it. It's impressive. I just love seeing him going out there and doing his thing.
And that, to me, speaks volumes, because he didn't say, oh, man, he's just really fast. He puts time into the game. Yeah. He works on his game. He works on his body. He works on being a good teammate. This is the stuff of legends, man. That's why I'm telling you, I hope that you appreciate in this tumultuous season, I hope that you appreciate the quality of the player that you're seeing. The games have not ended the way you wanted the games to end. That doesn't mean that you're not getting spectacular performances out of guys like Jaren Hall, Puka Nacua. I think Gabe Summers gave you, and nobody's going to talk about Gabe Summers. Nobody's going to talk about anybody on that defensive line because of how maligned it's been. Without Gabe Summers, BYU does not win that game in Boise. Period. Yeah. Full stop. Without Gabe Summers, they don't win that game. And I know that defense, which I think is really important, has been maligned. It was great to see blitzing out of the defense. It was great to see aggression in play calling out of the defense. And it's what we talked about last week. You don't make a switch and instantly see something different on defense. You went back to Kalani as the defensive coordinator. Now we had some time. Now we got to install some packages. Now we can see some blitzing and aggression out of the linebackers. We can see some stunting on the defensive line. Now into a bye week. What did Kalani say? What Kalani said was the bye week's really important.
Just trying to play fundamental sound football. That's what we're trying to do. I think we didn't miss as many tackles as before, and I think some of the big plays happened because we missed tackles, and we're just going to keep working on that. We have a bye week now next week, and so we have to use that week to get better in the fundamentals, and then just keep working hard. That's the goal.
Yeah. That's the goal. They're on a bye now. And
it feels good to finally be here, I feel like, for the program. 10 weeks in a row of just ass kicking.
Yeah, the schedule did not do you any favors. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that is very difficult. And the tough thing this morning is that you have a Utah team that absolutely dismantled Arizona.
Yeah.
And I mean at half speed. Utah, if you watched any of that game, Utah really was not their best, not close to their best. That Ute team that you saw on the field was not stellar. And they dismantled Arizona. And I will again say, hear my words on this. The next great Barton has arrived. Lander Barton is a stud. That kid, before it's said and done, is going to be one of the best linebackers in the country. And he will play on Sundays, and he will be better than any of the Bartons that came before him.
And isn't it funny how that works?
He's
right?
just, he is.
I mean, you look at the history of Kyle Whittingham led teams. And again, I'm just going to keep saying it. Like, I think every head coach has, ability, that's really channeled into one area of the football team. So like Kyle Whittingham is a defensive minded head coach, right? And so he's always got like a Barton, or he's always got, some stud in the linebacker core, and typically he's got a big time cornerback or safety like a Clark Phillips. Like, he's always got guys, and I think that to me is, again, like this morning when we're talking about BYU and Utah, like I think that the character of these two teams was on full display. Like, yeah, Utah wasn't their best, and they still torched what is a P5 Pac-12 team. Like, whatever you think about Arizona. And I think obviously, the Boise win for BYU is a massive character win. They're not going to any great bowl game. Like right now they're projected to play in the New Mexico Bowl. Great. Like, who cares? But the point is that you could have easily gone to Boise and died on the blue turf. And you didn't. And you did have these great plays, and Jaron is able to talk after the game, and Puka, is able to talk. And I don't know. It was just like you started the show last hour by saying this is one of the best sports weekends that we've had in the state of Utah in a really long time. And I really think that's the best way to characterize it. Because no matter who your team is, right, whether you're a Utah guy or a BYU guy or whatever, right, you had a great weekend. And I think we can't skip over that fact on a great Monday.
No, I agree. The Monty Show presented by the Advocates, UtahAdvocates.com.
I wanted to be in radio since I was tiny. It's constantly on the go and remembering what buttons to push, but I love it. It's so much fun. I'm Katie. I'm a radio producer and a dinosaur fanatic. I was injured in 2 very similar car accidents, hit from behind. Obviously wasn't my fault. I was sitting there stopped. When I called up the Advocates, they're like, oh, you definitely have a case. I'm grateful to have attorneys on my side when I need them. You never know what can happen on the road, and it's nice to know that you have someplace to go that can help.
Yeah, that's why you trust the Advocates, UtahAdvocates.com. And as I always tell you, no big retainers, no upfront costs for you. You don't pay consultation fees. In fact, the best part about going to UtahAdvocates.com, you can chat with them online, the best injury attorneys in the business, the Advocates, UtahAdvocates.com. Let's get your comments in here. Tyler P. says, Jaron Hall deserves to play for a better team. I think Jaron Hall deserves to play wherever he wants to play. And I think Jaron Hall wants to play at BYU. And listen, I understand why Utah fans will be upset. I mean, you, again, at half speed, you dismantled Arizona, and BYU's the bigger story. And I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I just think this tells you the gravitational pull of BYU football. I mean, as in a town where football is king, I think BYU is always going to be the big story.
Well, and I think that comment, like, hey, Jaron deserves to play for a better team. The problem is not that you're entirely wrong, because it'd be great to see Jaron Hall play for Alabama or Georgia or something ridiculous like that. The problem with that, though, is that there is no other team like BYU. Like that or hate that, like, that's the truth of the matter. There is not another team, in my opinion, that has the feel and like the culture and like just how it goes. Like, the experience you get at BYU is different. And again, we're not, like, I'm not a BYU fan. Like, I'm not even from Utah. Right? I'm just simply telling you that, like, you can, like, they may not be the best team in the country, but there's a reason Jaron Hall wants to be a Cougar. Like, that's just as simple as it is.
Well, and I also think there's a high level of apathy from Utah fans. I think there is a high level of apathy. We've had Utah fans tell us repeatedly, well, this is how our season goes. We'll lose a game we shouldn't lose, and we'll win all the big games, and we never get there. Well, you got there last year, and you have everything you want in front of you. You beat Oregon, everything's on the table, right? Because don't forget, USC and UCLA are going to play. If you're a Ute fan, you are now a USC fan, because you want USC to beat UCLA, and you just look at the way this conference is set up. There's no reason that Utah can't get everything it wants out of this season. You got to go to Oregon and win, which is a very difficult thing now. Greg Hawkins says, I feel great about this BYU team personally. I know you do. He also says, anytime BYU loses at least 6 games, it's a good time for me. Yes, it is. Jeremy Bolton says, whoa. Did you just say something positive about BYU? What's next? Ranch over blue cheese, Greg Hawkins? He didn't say something. It was a backhanded compliment. It wasn't positive. It wasn't. BYU was screwed as an independent, but doesn't mean we can't cheer for our team when they win anyways. Big 12 is a real win, which is coming soon. I will disagree with BYU fans on independence until the day I die, which could be today. I'm just telling you that you weren't screwed as an independent. You weren't. You knew what the job was, and the job was very difficult. And this year you didn't do the job as an independent. So you're going to be bowl eligible. You're probably going to wind up in the Las Vegas Bowl, depending on where Utah goes.
Yeah.
Let's see where you end up. Let's see what invitations you get. I know you're contractually obligated to a couple of really not great bowls, but we'll see. We'll see. Josh Levern says the negative noise has been warranted this year with BYU. Yeah, to a certain extent. I would agree with that. Gage Carter says, Jeremy, how does Cam Rising suck? Yeah, I don't think anybody seriously thinks that Cam Rising sucks.
Yeah.
I think the rhetoric from Utah fans that Jaren Hall's not as good as Bryson Barnes is embarrassing. I mean, for Utah fan. Because a lot of Utah fans are like, oh, Bryson Barnes is better. You don't.
That's a joke.
Come on. Brett Burnett says, BYU wins, they make some happy. And when they lose, they make Greg happy. That's exactly right. Boyd Lake says, the Nakua's energy has been the lifeblood of BYU for as long as they have been there.
Yeah.
I mean, Puka, he pushes that team forward. There's absolutely no doubt about that. He pushes that team forward. Cam Harrison, BYU winning the Pac-12 last year and now the Mountain West this year. LOL, seriously. Seriously. Tyler P. says, Jaren Hall deserves to play for a better team. I read that one already. Note that his helmet is a Utah.
Right.
Right. Brett Burnett says, I like it when all teams in Utah win. It's pretty rare, although, yeah, we don't need to talk about Weber. It's fine. It's fine.
No comment.
It's fine. Tanner says, not going to lie, BYU kind of wasted Puka's talent this year. Well, wasted his talent? I mean, the injury wasted his talent. So we'll say. But again, yeah, no, we're going to be positive about.
Yeah.
The defense played a good game. Great to see, Boyd Lake says. I would agree with that. Brett Burnett says, true, Tanner, but that happens. A lot of teams losing seasons happen. They do. And
I think, that was kind of what we talked about Friday is is this a thing where Kalani, we need to start talking about Kalani losing his job? Or is this a thing where you're having a down season mainly because your injury report is full of all of your workhorses? And that to me is what annoyed me about that injury report. It's like, dude, you gotta roll over this strength and conditioning staff. You gotta figure out what the hell is going on with this injury thing, because wasting talent like Puka Nacua is insane. Again, let's not forget, you rolled out in game 1 on the road with a Puka Nacua 70-yard play. That's how you started your season. That's what dude is capable of, and you're not able to use him because he's hurt so much. And I don't know, it's just again, not to be negative, but I have to imagine for Kalani, when you're looking at your situation, you're like, damn, dude, dude getting hurt is out of my control. What am I supposed to do about that? That's not a great place to be as a football coach. So I tend to feel like, hey, yeah, this was a down year, but I also think that the strength and conditioning thing is real, and you need to figure out what you're going to do about that.
Yeah, and I don't know how you fix that. I don't know if that is. I think there is a systematic issue at BYU. And I think there are a lot of things. And listen, man, I know it's Victory Monday all the way around in this town, but the dysfunction in the administration at BYU between the revenue generating machine and the football machine do not talk to each other. And they do not mesh well. They do not. I mean, middle management at BYU is a mess.
Facts.
And it's going to keep. My fear for BYU fan is that it keeps you from winning at on a high level in the Big 12. Because I just see it and hear about it all the time. The Night Guy says Kyler Murray's overrated. Yes, he is.
Dude.
Yes, he is. Greg Hawkins says, I love how everyone talks about how difficult BYU's schedule is, as if every P5 isn't playing at least 9 P5 games a year. But I think as an independent, when you schedule across conferences the way they have, and you're running into, I mean, you just look how good Oregon is. Look at Baylor. Look at like their schedule. This was one of the most difficult schedules in the country. Certainly more difficult than Utah's schedule.
Dude, you're 8 weeks in and you had to go to the East Coast. Like, do you have any idea how difficult that is? Like,
Yeah,
with all due respect, Greg, like I get it, a team like East Carolina isn't some world beater, right? Like, they're obviously pushing to do some things in their program, but yeah, you have to put it in context. It's not just about what's on the piece of paper. Like, I think that when you have the injuries and you've played who you've played, that stacks. And so then you start traveling and you start taking long road trips and you start doing these things. And it's like, damn, dude, like it adds up. Like Utah didn't have to wait till week 10 or whatever it is now for their bye week, right?
Yeah.
Utah got it like week 7, week 8. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not as simple as just who's on the schedule. It's how it pans out and how it works out.
Yep. Jeremy Bolton says, I will keep saying this until I get recognized. As mayor, I declare all other wide receivers as casuals, with Puka effing Nakua as the honorary mayor for as long as he wants.
Hey, guys.
I love the guy. I do. I think he is absolutely stellar as a wide receiver. I just, there's nothing to even talk about. I mean, he is just, he's unbelievable. In a state pack with talent. I mean, is there any argument he's the best wide receiver in the state?
No.
I mean, it's not close. Can you imagine BYU without Puka? I cannot. I can't. I mean, look at the plays he makes, the catches he makes, that he gets that foot down.
Look at what he does without the ball. Dude, the plays he makes plus what he does without the ball, like the attention he gets.
The blocking tenacity. I thought this was one of the more complete performances out of both sides of the football. I thought the offensive line was pretty solid, even though out of nowhere Kingsley Suamataia is out. I mean, Harris moves back to right tackle, and I thought represented himself quite well. I mean, I just think this offensive line has been wildly inconsistent at times, and I thought they equated themselves quite well. I think the linebackers played well even without Max Tooley. I thought the secondary made big plays. I mean, it was just a good win for BYU.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it was a good win for BYU. Tyler P. says 2 weeks from now, Utah at Oregon and USC versus UCLA will tell the tale.
Yep.
There's real questions about USC. I mean, their offense is. I mean, they were without their 2 best wide receivers. I mean, let's make sure we say that. I mean, USC's got injuries as well, but I think what you're seeing is the Pac-12 is starting to feast on itself. Like it is, the big boys are all running into each other now, and this is what you love about November football, right, Tyler? I mean, Utah and Oregon with USC and UCLA
With the conference on the line.
I mean, it's unbelievable football. It's so good. And it's why I always say, like, you cannot put Utah on the Pac-12 network.
Yeah.
It hurts their ability to be ranked where they should be ranked because nobody has access to it.
Fucking A.
Nobody.
Yeah.
So you can't have the Utah game. That's got to be an ESPN, ABC, or Fox game. Has to be. How is BYU and Boise on FS2? And you're on Pac-12 network where nobody can see you. It's crazy, man. And yet nobody will recognize that Utah was without some of its most important players, and you dismantled Arizona. You dismantled them. And the sad thing is that I think Utah is undervalued now with what they were able to do at Washington. You go to the Palouse and you roll out Bryson Barnes in a game where Fox doesn't even send the announcers.
That's fucking interesting, man.
How many people are watching that game on FS1 on a Thursday night? And I'm being serious.
Yeah, like it's a great point.
How is that where your game is?
I feel like the bar is like it's a great point. Like, dude, Utah is so proficient at winning that they're gonna suit up their starter. They're gonna push it all the way to the starting offensive huddle, and then Bryson Barnes is just gonna trot his little self out there. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. We're just gonna still win this game.
And if they had sent the crew from, and I know most people know this story.
Yeah.
Here on the Monty Show, presented by the Advocates, UtahAdvocates.com. I know most people know this story. Fox Sports did not have their announcers travel to Pullman to call that game. They had them in a studio in Los Angeles in front of a green screen calling that game. So they didn't know that Cam wasn't going to play. And they blamed Utah for hiding the injury. And it forced Kyle Whittingham to come out and say, well, hey, Jackalope, if you had traveled your announcers and had a sideline reporter here, you'd have known that he wasn't going to play, that he pulled himself out. You'd have known that
me, bro.
before kickoff, but they didn't, so they didn't. I'm telling you, it's Thursday night. It's Pullman on FS2 or FS1, excuse me, against the NFL. Nobody watched that game. Nobody watched that game. And it's really unfortunate because I think it hurts Utah. To have Utah on the Pac-12 network against Arizona hurts Utah.
That said, though, still got Oregon. And you can still do what you want and get to where you want to go.
Yeah, it's just incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
It's incredibly frustrating is what I would say. Brett Burnett says BYU Goodwin was a win that they needed. Relief. Oh, relief for sure. Arlington Bear says Puka makes us say Gunner who? Well, and sadly, Gunner just can't get on the field because Gunner Romney is a guy that is if you had Gunner, Chase, and Puka on the field together consistently, how much better is Isaac Rex? How much more lethal is Isaac Rex? How much and furthermore, if you were able to run bunch sets where you ran 4 wide receiver sets with Puka, Gunner, Chase, and Cody Epps, how much better is Jaron Hall?
Yeah.
But you can't keep these guys healthy. And you're losing, you essentially haven't had Gunner all year, even though he's played here and there. You haven't had him all year. Cody Epps is now out for the year. Isaac Rex, the interception off of his hands is unfathomable. The disappointment, and I know he's a good dude, and everybody gets on me when I say this, Isaac Rex has been an incredible disappointment this year. He just has been.
Yeah.
And when you lose the guy that quit on the team, whose name I will never say again, when you lose the guy that quit on the team after 3 weeks, Isaac Rex should have been far more of an option. But it's a guy like a Cosper, and it makes it even more mind-numbing that you're not giving the ball to Puka as much as humanly possible. And again, I will say, I'm telling you, Jaron changed several of those plays to get Puka the football. M. Morris says Pack is still overrated. No, it's not. It's actually underrated, in my opinion. Salty Drunk says, okay, granted, BYU had a win. Does that mean the entire show is dedicated to them?
Well, actually, the entire show hasn't been about BYU, and we're not behind schedule.
We've talked about BYU for 29 minutes out of 90 minutes, and that's too much for you. Well, hey, man, good to see you. Pack just isn't noticed. Play in a time zone unfavorable. Could be. You need a better distribution deal. It's that simple. You're just not on enough people on their TVs enough, in my mind. CJ Vance says, what's up, guy? Good morning, go Cougs. Absolutely.
What's up, CJ?
Jeremy Bolton says, trying to watch games in the state of Utah has been disappointing to say the least. The Jazz equal impossible to watch a game. U games are on the Pac-12, et cetera. Yeah. And now you find BYU and Boise on FS2, who until I flipped on YouTube TV in our studio, because we're actually full-grown adults now. We actually have a TV in the studio.
Yeah.
And we spent most of our day in here yesterday wiring this studio the right way and switching stuff out and flipping around YouTube TV. I didn't even know FS2 was a real thing. Like, I've never watched FS2 before Saturday. God's honest truth. Never watched it. Not until, Yeah. Anyway. Zayman says, it's time to admit it. I love the Jazz crappy uniforms. And I really love watching my team beat down your team, proudly wearing their crappy uniforms. When do we wear the highlighters again? Not soon enough. Not soon enough. The biggest stories in sports on this show are brought to you by Quick Quack Car Wash. As we talk Utah Jazz basketball, I think they are absolutely the biggest story in Utah sports right now. Even on a Victory Monday where both Utah and BYU get wins, it's pretty remarkable that leading the biggest stories in sports are the Utah Jazz.
Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you the secret to impressing my neighbors, the YA coworkers, you name it. I just swing by Quick Quack. It seriously takes 2 minutes, and people can't stop, won't stop checking me out. Getting a clean car is definitely my best life hack. Kids are messy, camping's dirty, but my truck sure isn't.